I'll so this is what we are talking about, the transforaminal injection. Yeah. Is my screen visible?
Yeah, visible, sir, visible.
Yeah.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
It's visible.
Yeah, great. Thanks. So if you can appreciate this needle over here, it has gone up to the epidural space in the foramen. This is the foramen where the nerve is exiting. And it is confirmed with a dye so that you can trace the nerve route from where the nerve, so the nerve would be starting from here and coming down over here. So depending on what level the nerve is being compressed by the disc, accordingly a particular nerve or that epidural space can be blocked with xylocaine, with a local anesthetic and a steroid injection. So of course we have studied about exiting and traversing nerve routes. So I'd like to refurbish this, that if supposing this is the disc, okay, 4-5 disc, okay. If you can now appreciate that the L4 nerve, which comes below the L4 vertebra, has already exited from here. So the L4-5 disc is not compressing the L4 nerve root. So there's no point blocking the L4 nerve root. The L4-5 vertebra will compress the L5 nerve root, and the symptoms would be in the L5 dermatome. So if we have features, radicular features in the L5 dermatome, it is because of compression at the L4-5 level. So if we have to block the neuropathic pain coming to the L5 nerve, we have to block the L5 nerve root. So that is how we decide which level the injection needs to be given. Similarly, there are the sacroiliac injections. Sacroiliac dysfunction can be due to decreased mobility of the SI joint or excessive mobility of the SI joint. So either case, there can be stress at the SI joint, and patients can come with sacroiliac pain. So there's another point which I'd like to highlight over here, that all pain radiating down the thigh is not radicular pain. Okay, many a times it is a referred pain. So what I mean to say is that when you try to correlate the patient's symptom, the MRI with the patient's symptom, you might not find so much of neurological compression on the MRI, but the patient is having a lot of pain in the back of the thigh and lower down. So many a times what happens is that the patient is having pain because of the facet arthritis or sacroiliac pain, which is being referred down to the leg. Okay, so it is like an appendicular pain. If you remember your undergraduate days, we talked about referred pain during that time, when we said that the pain because of appendicitis, it is referred to the center of the abdomen. Okay, it is more localized around the umbilical area, or a pain, say in the under the diaphragm, the pain is referred in the shoulder region. So these are called referred pains. So if we block the facet block, if we block the facet joint, or if we block the sacroiliac pain without blocking the nerve as well, you will get decent pain relief in the referred pain as well. So what happens is, say the lumbar sympathetic chain, which comes down from in the lumbosacral plexus, the same nerves are supplying the facet joint, and the same nerves are going down the thigh as well. So when one nerve is being irritated, the sensation is felt in other parts as well. So how do we confirm that? One, if your MRI is not correlating with your symptoms. Secondly, the patient has point tenderness over, say, the sacroiliac region or the facet joint. Lumbar disc patient will not have tenderness in that L4-5 region, but a patient with lumbar L4-5 facet pain will have tenderness in that region. So when we administer injection to the facet joint, it is not just therapeutic, but it is diagnostic as well, for us to confirm the source of the pain. Similarly, caudal block analgesia, it was earlier given a lot before dedicated blocks were developed, before dedicated facet blocks and injections were given. This was a very common form of regional anesthesia, which was administered by our anesthetist friends. It was given without any CAM guidance in the OPD procedure itself. As you can see, they just felt for the sacral hiatus and the injection was inserted. Medicine was dumped here, and it was presumed that it will reach the L4, 5, L5, S1 region, and it used to give sufficient pain relief as well. This is the technique of how it was given. Then there are the intra-articular injections, be it in the knee joint for osteoarthritis or rheumatoid arthritis, or for periarthritis in the shoulder. It is a very common form of pain management technique which is given in the OPDs. Trigger point injections, again, it is very useful for fibromyalgia patients. Of course, they have to come often for repeat injections, but it definitely gives them decent pain relief. That too when nothing else is working, when no NSAIDs or no other modality is working. Local steroid injection is something which is very helpful in fibromyalgia patients. For one, as an anti-inflammatory. Secondly, whenever fibromyalgia patients, they have a sense of feeling that nobody is taking their pain seriously. That is when you advise a particular intervention, they easily lap up this procedure because they think that, okay, finally somebody is taking my symptoms seriously. Tenosynovium injections, it is very commonly used for tenosynovitis, be it decoherence tenosynovitis or supraspinatus tendinitis, or bigger fingers, tennis elbows. In all these places, we administer steroid injections in the tenosynovium, and it has definitely helped a lot. Radiofrequency ablation, again, this is an extrapolation of the steroid injection. Steroid injections, as can be argued, that it can have temporary effects. In radiofrequency ablation, it is basically burned. The nerves being supplied, the nerve supplying that particular facet is burned. So, as you can see here, that every median nerve has got 3 branches, one going to that particular facet joint, the other going to the facet joint above, and the third one going down. So every facet joint has got 3 branches, is being supplied by 3 nerves. So if we have to block this facet joint, we have to give injections at 3 levels. Similarly, if we are burning these 3 nerves, then there won't be any nerve supplied to this facet joint. So even if the disease stays, the facet arthritis stays, the patient will not have any pain. Similarly, radiofrequency ablation is also administered for patients who cannot undergo, say, knee replacement surgeries. So all the nerves which supply the knee joint, all the articular, the genicular nerves which supply the knee joint, they are burned with radiofrequency ablators. Vertebroplasty, I'll not call it exactly a non-operative, but yeah, less invasive procedure in which cement is injected percutaneously under local anesthesia in the osteoporosed fractured vertebra. And has definitely shown very good results with immediate pain relief. Then there are certain injections which are very much, it is mostly limited to people with very chronic pains, as in reflex sympathetic dystrophy, even cancer pains. In these patients, the ganglion blocks are very effective, but as you can see, it is very close to the sympathetic nervous system, so it is usually given under ultrasound guidance, but it is definitely very useful. So stellate ganglion blocks are very useful in reflex sympathetic dystrophies. If you have patients who have had Colles fracture and they have severe stiffness in their hand, then this is something which you can definitely try. Similarly, lumbar sympathetic block for peripheral vascular diseases and for cancer pains for patients with pelvic organ pains because of cancer or because of radiation. They have splendid relief with lumbar sympathetic block. Of course, no procedure is without without complications. Similarly, these injection techniques also have their fair share of complications. First is no relief. Patients spending time, money, they have been convinced for a pain relief injection. The worst thing that can happen is that if they don't have sufficient pain relief, say if they have pain relief only till the local anesthetic lasted, then they'll come back to you and crib about it. Second is anaphylaxis. Anaphylaxis can happen to anybody with any procedure, but of course you can limit this by limiting the amount of injection, the amount of medicine that you're giving. You can have, you should have a decent history of the patient. Say if a patient has undergone spinal surgery earlier, then you're fairly sure that they're not allergic to xylocaine or Anavin or bupivacaine. You should wait after giving local anesthetic. In spite of everything, you should wait for 5 minutes and watch for any anaphylaxis before giving the steroid injection. And of course, it is always better that it is given in a hospital setup so that, God forbid, if there's any complication, it can be managed better in a hospital setup than in a clinic or in the OPD. Intravascular injection, there can be an inadvertently you can inject the medicine can go in the vascular space, and lignocaine has got effect on the cardiac rhythm, so that can be a catastrophic effect. Reactionary pain, they would very often you will find people who have undergone intra-articular steroid injections for, say, for periarthritis or for tennis elbow. They'll come back if they have had the injection in the morning, in the evening they'll come back with severe pain, and that is usually reactionary to the steroid that is there. Depot preparations are more granular and tend to cause granular inflammation. Certain injections like Tricort or Kenacort, which is triamcinolone based, is more. It is less granular and tends to cause less inflammation. Neurological deficit is usually limited for till the effect of local anesthetic lasts, but of course theoretically it can be permanent as well, but it doesn't usually happen. One complication of radiofrequency ablation, which is usually advocated, is that it can cause Charcot's joint. As we know that Charcot's joint is the neuropathic effect of joint in which the joint becomes disorganized because of the lack of any nerve sensation. So if that theory is extended to radio frequency, say in a patient with osteoarthritis, we have blocked and burnt all the genicular branches of the nerve, then the patient might end up with a Charcot's joint of the knee in, say, a couple of years down the line. So that is one argument that is usually given for in case of this radio frequency ablation. Of course, there can be other complications as well, like infections and synovitis, which is common with any other injection. But this is what is limited to specifically to injection techniques. So if we can take certain questions.
Yes, there are a few questions. Actually, there are many questions. So I'll start asking one by one. And thank you so much, sir. It was really so nice to learn so many things. Sir, first,
I tried to put in a lot of information.
No. That was a lot of information, and I guess a lot new things for us also to think about. And sir, there is one question. What is the reason of increase of pain with candies, fast food, and all that you have mentioned?
Yeah, so it says that these food have certain constituents which increase the inflammation. Like some certain food products like salmon and food products rich in omega-3 fatty acids, these tend to decrease the inflammation. Similarly, food rich in artificial sweeteners, they tend to increase the inflammation.
Okay, so then one question is how to assess whether pain can be released surgically or non-surgically in PIVD cases. I mean, how we decide, like if a patient comes to us
Right.
directly.
Yeah. So if you look at the natural history of PIVD, you will find that the natural history of PIVD is that it is self-limiting. Okay. So the patient is most painful when it starts. That is when the body's inflammatory process has kicked in. Okay. So all the substance P and all the inflammatory markers are there inside the spinal canal. Okay, that is when the maximum amount of inflammation is going on around the nerve roots. Now the pain is not so much because of the PIVD, but because of the inflammatory markers, and that is why steroids and painkillers help so much during this. Now PIVD is not per se an indication for surgery. Indication for surgery is intractable pain, that is when it is not responding to anything. Secondly, if there's a neurological deficit. Okay. If the pain is responding, if the patient is responding to painkillers, be it oral painkillers or any physiotherapy modality or just injection techniques, then we should always give time for it to heal on its own. Because as we know, for the surgery, in the surgery, we don't remove the entire disc. It is only the disc which is causing the compression, which is removed. So now there's always tendency that whatever disc is left behind can come back. We have always heard of recurrences. We have always heard of adjacent level disc diseases. Okay, so the surgery is not an answer to prolapsed intervertebral disc per se. It is only an answer for neurological deficit. Okay, so even if the patient has a lot of pain, we should uh, try out all the modalities of pain management before pushing anybody for surgery. Okay, so intractable pain and um, neurological deficit. These are the only two indications for surgery in PIVD. Now, whether they'll benefit from it or not, again, injection techniques are useful for that as well. Say if a patient is having severe pain because of L4-5 PIVD, and if you have given an injection in the L4-5 level, okay, and the patient has pain relief, so you are fairly sure that the pain is because of the L4-5 disc. Okay, so these injections are not just therapeutic, but it is diagnostic as well.
So then one question is why in lumbar disc herniation there will be no tenderness?
Okay, the lumbar disc herniation per se is happening at such a deep level in the spine that it will not really cause any tender spots superficially. Okay, you cannot really feel it from outside. Okay, why do patients have tenderness in chronic PIVD is because of the chronic changes which have occurred over the years. Say a patient has had prolapsed disc for last couple of years. Now, because of the ligamentum hypertrophy and the associated facet arthropathy and the lumbar spondylosis that is setting in, is that patients start having tenderness in the lumbar region, and not because of the lumbar PIVD. Lumbar PIVD will have only radicular pain. That's it.
So then, apart from the injections, what else can be given to patient with fibromyalgia?
Fibromyalgia, of course. So in fibromyalgia patients, a lot of in the form of medicines, we'll use a lot of pregabalin and gabapentins. The antidepressants, and anticonvulsant group of medicines are very useful. And of course, the physiotherapy modalities are very useful because they loosen up the tender points.
So there are a few more questions, but this meeting is about to end. So can we, go for one more session, 10-15 minutes? I'll generate one more meeting.
Yeah, sure.
We can
Yeah.
talk this. So I'll just end
Yeah.
this meeting right
Sure.
now,
Great.
and then after that, the questions will be asked in the next one.